In a distant future, where stars glimmered like diamonds in the infinite sky, humanity had spread across many planets. Huge spaceships traveled between worlds, carrying trade, ideas, and sometimes, battles. Earth, the cradle of humanity, remained a vibrant blue jewel, filled with life and advanced technology. Yet, despite its beauty, Earth had its share of troubles. One day, an unexpected message arrived from the galaxy's most powerful alliance, known as the Galactic Union. They were in a war against a ruthless race called the Grathians. The Grathians were a terror to many, conquering world after world with their advanced weaponry and brutal tactics. The Galactic Union, desperate for help, reached out to Earth. They asked for soldiers to join the fight. The leaders of Earth gathered in a grand hall, discussing the request. Captain Avery Sinclair, a strong and noble woman, stood before the council. She had served in various battles and understood the weight of the Union's call. "We must help them," she said passionately. "If we ignore this, the Grathians will advance further, and we could be next." But Marcus Wren, a tactical genius and a skeptic, stood up. "What if we are sending our best and brightest to their deaths? The Grathians have a reputation for slaughtering every soldier they face. We need to think carefully." The council debated long into the night, but as dawn broke, a plan was formed. They decided to send a small group of elite fighters, each with unique skills. The message was sent: Earth would help, but they would not simply be soldiers. They would send the strongest, the fiercest warriors, the executioners of the Grathians. The team was assembled. It included Captain Avery Sinclair, Marcus Wren, a witty mechanic named Lila, and a former mercenary known as Blaze. Each member brought different strengths to the team. The unity formed quickly, for they were not just fighting for themselves but for the hope of their home. They boarded the sleek spaceship, Starfire, designed for speed and combat. The journey to the battlefield was tense but filled with anticipation. "Just remember, they asked us for soldiers, but we are executioners," Blaze grinned, brandishing a weapon that glimmered like a star. His bravado lightened the mood, but a shadow of fear still lingered. Upon arrival at the war-torn planet, the team witnessed chaos. The sky was dark with smoke, and the sounds of battle echoed like thunder. The sight of the Grathians was terrifying. Their monstrous forms towered over humans, with metallic skin that shimmered ominously. It was a race that knew no mercy, and their eyes glowed with a fierce hunger for domination. Captain Avery gathered the team. "We have one goal: dismantle their command. If we can disrupt their leaders, we might weaken their grip on the Alliance." The team nodded, determination flooding their hearts. They moved stealthily, avoiding the main battles, relying on the cover of night. Lila used her expertise in technology to disable Grathian defenses as they slipped through enemy lines. They made their way to a high-tech fortress, where they believed the Grathian leaders were stationed. As they neared the fortress, things took a turn. A patrol of Grathian soldiers spotted them. Blaze wasted no time. With expert precision, he fired his weapon, taking down the first Grathian. The team sprang into action. A fierce melee broke out. Lila hacked their weapons, rendering them useless, while Marcus displayed leadership, guiding his comrades through the chaotic fray. "What do we do now?" Lila shouted, dodging a swing from a Grathian claw. "Push forward. We can't let them regroup." Sinclair shouted, slicing through a Grathian with her shining sword. Under the blinding flashes of energy weapons and the crash of combat, they fought valiantly but knew they had to reach the command center soon. Finally, they breached the inner sanctum, a large room filled with holographic images of the battlefield. Across the table stood a towering Grathian commander, his eyes darting with malice. "More humans to crush. How adorable," he mocked, his voice deep and rumbling. "This is for all the lives you've taken." Avery yelled as she charged forward, her sword raised high. The battle that ensued was fierce. The Grathian commander was strong and relentless. He swung a massive weapon, sending Marcus crashing against a wall. With quick thinking, Lila rushed to help him. "Stay focused," Marcus yelled, pushing himself up. Just as things seemed hopeless, Blaze got an idea. "Cover me. I'm going for the control panel." Without hesitation, his teammates provided cover fire while he sprinted towards the control panel. The commander, furious, turned his attention to Blaze. But Avery jumped in between, deflecting a deadly hit, while Lila activated her newest gadget, blinding the Grathian with a wave of dazzling lights. With the commander momentarily dazed, Blaze reached the panel and began typing frantically. "I can override their system. We can turn their own ship against them." Just as the Grathian regained his focus, Blaze completed the override. Alarms echoed as the fortress began to tremble. "Get ready to go!" Blaze shouted, dashing back towards his team. They made their escape just as explosions erupted around them. The command center crumbled, and as they fled, they watched as their enemy's stronghold disintegrated into chaos. Breathless, they boarded Starfire, and as they blasted off the planet, they looked back at the destruction they had caused. They had answered the call for soldiers and, instead, became executioners. In the end, the Galactic Union learned of Earth's strength. Captain Sinclair, Marcus, Lila, and Blaze became legends among the stars. They proved that humans, when pushed, were not just soldiers but warriors capable of turning the tide of war. And the galaxy would remember the day Earth sent not merely soldiers, but executioners that changed the fate of a battle forever. The signal crackled through the void, a desperate plea from a civilization on the brink. The Xylos, a peaceful plant-like species, were being decimated by the HFY, a relentless, insectoid swarm. Their message was simple: we require soldiers. Send aid. On Earth, the United Nations Space Command, UNSC, debated. The Prime Directive, a cornerstone of interstellar relations, forbade interference in the internal affairs of other civilizations. But the HFY weren't just interfering, they were consuming. The Council was divided, but humanity had always had a soft spot for the underdog. A compromise was reached. They wouldn't send soldiers, not exactly. They would send specialists. Commander Eva Rostova stood on the bridge of the UNSC Retribution, staring out at the swirling nebula that marked the edge of Xylo's territory. Beside her stood Sergeant Marcus, the Hammer Hamilton, a mountain of a man with cybernetic enhancements glinting beneath his skin. Behind them were 10 others, each a legend whispered in the darkest corners of the UNSC. They were the executioners, humanity's last resort. Approaching Xylo's space, Commander, the helmsman announced. Eva turned, her face grim. Prepare for first contact. The Xylos were, as the reports described, tall, slender beings with bark-like skin and leaves for hair. Their cities were grown, not built, organic structures that pulsed with life. But now, those cities were scarred, overrun with the chitinous bodies of the HFY. The Xylos' ambassador, a being named Lyra, greeted them with weary gratitude. "We thank you for answering our call. The HFY are relentless. We have lost so much." "We're here to help, Ambassador," Eva said, her voice steady. "But understand, we operate differently." Lyra inclined her leafy head. "We are willing to accept any assistance." That night, the executioners were deployed. They moved like shadows through the ravaged cities, their weapons humming with contained power. They didn't engage in large-scale battles. They hunted. They stalked. They eliminated high-value targets with brutal efficiency. Marcus, with his enhanced strength and custom-built hammer, became a one-man wrecking crew, smashing through HFY formations and leaving trails of pulverized chitin. Anya, the Wraith Petrova, a master of stealth and infiltration, moved unseen, poisoning HFY nests and sabotaging their communication networks. Jen, the Ghost Lee, a cyber warfare expert, hacked into the HFY hive mind, sowing discord and confusion. The HFY, accustomed to overwhelming force, were caught off guard. Their swarms became disorganized, their attacks erratic. The tide began to turn. Eva watched the reports with a mixture of pride and unease. The executioners were effective, terrifyingly so. But their methods, they were brutal, bordering on sadistic. She had seen Marcus laughing as he crushed HFY drones, Anya whispering taunts as she poisoned their young, Jen rewriting their code to turn them against each other. "They're enjoying this too much," she murmured to herself. Lyra approached her, her leafy face etched with gratitude. "Your specialists are proving invaluable. The HFY are retreating." "Yes," Eva said slowly. "But at what cost?" The HFY, desperate, unleashed their ultimate weapon, the Devourer, a bioengineered behemoth capable of consuming entire cities. It was a last-ditch effort, a desperate gamble. The executioners gathered, their faces grim. This was different. This was a threat even they might not be able to handle. "We need a plan," Eva said, her voice tight. Marcus grinned, a predatory glint in his eyes. "I have an idea." Their plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They would lure the Devourer into the heart of the largest KR hive, then detonate a series of seismic charges, collapsing the hive and burying the Devourer alive. It worked. The Devourer, blinded and disoriented, stumbled into the hive. The executioners planted the charges, their fingers dancing over the detonators. "Ready?" Eva asked, her voice barely a whisper. They nodded. The hive collapsed, a mountain of chitin and flesh burying the Devourer. The Kerwell, their leadership gone, their hive destroyed, scattered and were easily picked off by the Xylos defenders. The war was over. The Xylos celebrated, hailing the executioners as heroes. But Eva couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She had unleashed something terrible upon this world, something that couldn't be easily contained. As the retribution prepared to depart, Lyra approached Eva, her leafy face troubled. "Your specialists, they were effective. But their methods, they were cruel." "They are executioners, Ambassador," Eva said, her voice flat. "They are trained to kill. They know nothing else." "But is that all humanity is?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with doubt. "Executioners." Eva looked at her, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "No, Ambassador. But sometimes it's what we have to be." As the retribution jumped into hyperspace, Eva gathered the executioners in the mess hall. They were celebrating, drinking and laughing, their faces flushed with victory. "All right, settle down," Eva said, her voice cutting through the noise. "We have a debriefing." The laughter died down. The executioners looked at her, their eyes expectant. "You did your job," Eva said, her voice carefully neutral. "You saved the Xylos. But your methods, they were unacceptable." Marcus frowned. "Unacceptable? We won the war, didn't we?" "Yes, you won the war," Eva said. "But you enjoyed it. You reveled in the violence. That's not what we're about." "What are we about then, Commander?" Anya asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Saving the galaxy, one victim at a time?" "We're about protecting humanity," Eva said, her voice firm. "And sometimes that means doing things we don't like. But it doesn't mean we have to enjoy it." She looked at each of them in turn, her eyes filled with warning. "You are valuable assets. But you are also a danger. You need to control your impulses. You need to remember that you are soldiers, not monsters." The executioners remained silent, their faces unreadable. Eva sighed. She knew she hadn't reached them. They were too far gone, too consumed by their own darkness. As the retribution continued its journey home, Eva stared out at the stars, her heart heavy. They had saved the Xylos, but they had unleashed something terrible in the process. They had sent executioners, and the galaxy would never be the same. She couldn't help but wonder if they had made the right choice. Had they saved a civilization, or had they condemned it? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, the universe now knew what humanity was capable of. And that knowledge, she feared, would come at a price. In the distant future, Earth had become a beacon of technology and prosperity. Humanity had expanded into the galaxy, connecting with alien races, some friendly and others hostile. 4 years, Earth had maintained peace, but that peace was about to be tested. The Galactic Alliance, a collection of advanced species from across the cosmos, was facing a grave threat. A ruthless alien race known as the Vraxians began conquering planets, enslaving their inhabitants, and spreading fear. In desperation, the Alliance turned to Earth for help. They sent an urgent message. They needed soldiers. At the heart of the decision to respond was Captain Ilara Winslow. She was a strong leader with a reputation for bravery. Ilara had seen enough battles to know that the Vraxians were fierce. She gathered a small team of her best soldiers, Sergeant Leo, a gruff veteran with a heart of gold, Private Nia, a tech genius who could hack any system, and Corporal Rahim, a skilled marksman with exceptional aim. As they prepared for the mission, the team received a holographic briefing from the Galactic Council. The Council depicted the Vraxians as brutal warriors who did not just kill, they tortured and humiliated their enemies. Ilara felt a shiver down her spine. This was more than a fight for survival, it was a fight for freedom. "We're not just sending soldiers," she said to her team. "We are bringing justice. We will show them that Earth does not back down." As their spaceship, the Unity, traveled to the war-torn planet of Zalthar, Elara gazed out at the stars, thinking about what lay ahead. The team prepared for battle, practicing advanced combat techniques and discussing strategies. Meanwhile, Nia worked tirelessly on countermeasures, crafting devices to disrupt Vraxian technology. Upon landing, they were met with destruction. The once vibrant city of Sarek was in ruins. Alien ships hovered sinisterly in the sky, and the air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning debris. The team quickly assessed their surroundings, activating their communication devices. "Look there," Rahim pointed at a group of enslaved Zaltharians. They appeared weak and frightened, but there was a fire in their eyes. Elara knew that freeing them could spark hope. "First, we rescue them," Elara ordered. The team moved stealthily, using shadows to conceal their approach. Nia set up a gadget to disable the Vraxian guards, while Leo prepared to cover them. "Ready on your mark, Captain," Leo whispered. "Now," Elara commanded. The team moved quickly, freeing the Zaltharians and leading them to safety. But their victory was short-lived as an alarm blared. The Vraxians had discovered them. "What now?" Nia cried out, panic in her voice. "Fight!" Elara shouted. They had no choice. The battle was fierce. Vraxians were strong, their weapons deadly. But the Earth team was skilled. Leo took down foes with a steady hand, while Rahim's sharpshooting kept enemies at bay. Nia used her tech skills to hack into the enemy's weapon systems, causing them to fail. "Here, take this." Nia threw a device to Elara, who quickly understood its purpose. It could disable an entire sector of weapons. They only had one shot. "Cover me!" Elara yelled as she sprinted toward the Vraxian command center. Bullets whizzed past her, but she dodged and weaved, focused on her goal. She activated the device just as a beam of energy shot dangerously close to her. The silence that followed was eerie. Suddenly, the Vraxians stopped firing. They were confused and disoriented. The Earth soldiers took this opportunity to rally the Zaltharians. "Now we fight for freedom," Elara encouraged, her voice rising above the chaos. The Zaltharians, inspired, joined the fight alongside the Earth team. What began as a small squad of soldiers turned into a powerful force. As the tide turned, the Vraxians began to retreat. They fired wildly, but their heart was no longer in the fight. The unity of the Zaltharians and Earth soldiers overwhelmed them. "Push forward!" Leo shouted. "We cannot let them escape." The team fought bravely, with every member showing courage. Nia's tech skills proved invaluable as she provided cover and support. Rahim's sharpshooting took down fleeing enemies, while Leo led with a steady hand. Elara, fueled by their determination, was relentless. But as they captured the command center, a chilling realization hit them. The Vraxians had a leader, a commander known as Grathawk. He was rumored to be as brutal as he was cunning. Moments later, he appeared, towering and fierce, surrounded by his elite guards. Elara felt her stomach knot. Grathawk was everything the reports had warned about. "It's over, Earthlings," he growled, his voice deep and menacing. "You think you can topple the Vraxians?" "You do not know Earth," Elara replied, her voice steady even as fear tickled at the edges. "We are not here to fight for glory. We are here for justice." The fight for their lives began again. Grathawk and his guards were relentless. Elara felt the team falter. They were outnumbered. But then she remembered the Zaltharians. They had joined the fight because Elara had shown them hope. "Together!" she shouted. With newfound strength, the Zaltharians charged with the Earth team. The confusion and chaos worked to their advantage, and slowly they pushed Grathawk back. Finally, it was Elara who faced Grathawk head-on. She fought fiercely, her training coming to life. After an intense struggle, she managed to disarm him, holding his weapon tightly. "It's over, Grathawk," she said, breathing heavily. "Your reign ends here." With a roar of defeat, he fell back, defeated by the very people he thought he could crush. The surviving Vraxians fled, and the battle was won. As dawn broke over Zalthar, the remnants of the Earth team and the newly freed Zaltharians stood together. They had fought for life and justice. The Galactic Alliance had asked for soldiers, but what they received were protectors, executioners of fear and despair. Ilara looked at her team, pride swelling in her chest. They had shown that courage could change the tide of despair. They were not just soldiers from Earth, they were heroes. Characters. Captain Eva Rostova, a hardened and pragmatic leader of the elite executioner unit. Jax, a young, idealistic soldier, fresh out of training, assigned to Rostova's unit. Ambassador Gorak, a desperate alien diplomat seeking Earth's aid. Commander Zhao, a high-ranking Earth military officer overseeing the operation. They asked Earth for soldiers, we sent executioners. The flickering holographic image of Ambassador Gorak pleaded with Earth. Our world, Xylos, is on the brink. The KRWL are relentless, consuming everything in their path. We beg you, send soldiers, send help. Commander Zhao, his face etched with concern, addressed the assembled officers. The KRWL are a parasitic swarm, wiping out entire civilizations. If they reach our space, Earth is next. Captain Eva Rostova stood silently among them, her gaze unwavering. Rostova was not a soldier, she was an executioner. Leader of a specialized unit trained for the most brutal and unforgiving combat scenarios. Her team was the last resort and the ultimate weapon. Captain Rostova, Commander Zhao said, turning his attention to her. Your unit is being deployed to Xylos. Rostova nodded, her expression unchanged. Understood, Commander. Jax, fresh out of training and wide-eyed with a naive sense of heroism, was assigned to Rostova's unit. He couldn't believe his luck. His first mission was to save an alien world. This was the stuff of dreams. As the transport ship hurtled through the void, Jax approached Rostova. Captain, what's the plan? Rostova's voice was cold and devoid of emotion. The plan, soldier, is to exterminate. The KRWL are beyond reasoning, beyond saving. They are a plague, and we are the cure. Jax frowned, taken aback by her harsh words. But, shouldn't we try to understand them? Find a way to stop them without killing them all? Rostova stopped and stared at Jax, her eyes like chips of ice. Understanding is a luxury we don't have, soldier. Compassion is a weakness. On Xylos, you will follow my orders without question. Is that clear? Yes, Captain, Jax replied, his enthusiasm dampened. The transport ship landed on the ravaged surface of Xylos. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the ground was covered in a layer of pulsating organic matter. The KRWL had already consumed much of the planet. Ambassador Gorak greeted them, his face etched with relief and desperation. Thank you for coming. You are our only hope. Rostova gave a curt nod. Take us to the front lines. The battlefield was a scene of utter devastation. Xylosian soldiers fought bravely, but their energy weapons were ineffective against the KRWL's thick chitinous armor. The KRWL swarmed over them, their razor-sharp claws tearing through flesh and bone. Rostova's unit moved with ruthless efficiency. They didn't bother with standard combat tactics. Their weapons were designed for maximum carnage: plasma flamethrowers, sonic disruptors, and neurotoxin grenades. Jax watched in horror as his comrades unleashed hell on the KRWL. The air crackled with energy, and the ground was littered with burning, twitching bodies. It was a massacre, not a battle. Captain, isn't this too much? Jax asked, his voice trembling. Are we really saving anyone, or are we just destroying everything? Rostova ignored him, her focus solely on the enemy. Maintain your position, soldier. Eliminate all threats. As the days turned into weeks, Rostova's unit pushed back the KRWL, reclaiming territory inch by bloody inch. The Xylosians hailed them as heroes, but Jax couldn't shake the feeling that they were anything but. One day, during a lull in the fighting, Jax stumbled upon a group of KRWL that had been separated from the main swarm. They were huddled together, seemingly afraid. Among them was a young KRWL, no bigger than a human child. Jax hesitated, his hand hovering over his weapon. He looked into the eyes of the young KRWL and saw a flicker of something that resembled fear. Against his better judgment, Jax lowered his weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The young Carwell tilted its head, as if trying to understand. Suddenly, Rostova appeared, her face a mask of fury. "What are you doing, soldier? I gave you an order." Before Jax could react, Rostova raised her weapon and fired. The young Carwell crumpled to the ground, its life extinguished in an instant. Jax stared at Rostova, his eyes filled with rage and disbelief. "How could you do that? It was just a child." Rostova grabbed Jax by the collar, her grip like iron. "There are no children in war, soldier. Only enemies. Now, get back in line, or you'll be next." Something inside Jax snapped. He shoved Rostova away and raised his weapon, pointing it at her head. "I won't let you do this anymore. I won't be a part of your slaughter." Rostova didn't flinch. "You can't do it, soldier. You don't have the stomach for it." Jax's finger tightened on the trigger. He wanted to believe he could, but he knew Rostova was right. He wasn't an executioner. He was just a soldier. With a sigh of defeat, Jax lowered his weapon. Rostova smirked. "That's what I thought." Rostova turned and walked away, leaving Jax to grapple with his conscience. He knew he couldn't stay with her unit, but he also knew he couldn't abandon Xylos. Jax decided to find another way to help. He began to study the KRYL, trying to understand their behavior, their weaknesses. He learned that they were not simply mindless monsters. They were driven by a primal instinct to survive, to consume. He discovered that the KRYL were vulnerable to certain frequencies of sound. He developed a device that could disrupt their nervous systems, rendering them docile. Jax presented his findings to Ambassador Gorak, who was skeptical but willing to try anything. Together, they deployed the device, and to their amazement, it worked. The KRYL became passive, no longer attacking. The Xylosians rejoiced, hailing Jax as a true hero. But Jax knew that the KRYL were still a threat. They needed a new home, a new source of sustenance. Jax proposed a radical solution, to terraform a nearby planet and relocate the KRYL there. It was a risky plan, but it was the only way to ensure the survival of both the Xylosians and the KRYL. With the help of the Xylosians, Jax began the arduous process of terraforming the planet. It took years of hard work, but finally, it was ready. The KRYL were transported to their new home, where they could thrive without threatening anyone. Jax had come to Xylos as a soldier, but he left as a savior. He had learned that true strength was not found in brutality, but in compassion and understanding. Earth had sent executioners, but one soldier chose a different path, and in doing so, he saved a world. In the year 2145, Earth was not the peaceful planet it once was. It had become a busy hub of technology, filled with towering skyscrapers and machines that whirred day and night. Yet, there was a darkness that loomed over humanity. Different worlds in the galaxy were crumbling under terrible odds, and one distant planet, Trelia, sent out a distress signal. They begged for soldiers to help defend their territory against vicious alien invaders known as the Gorthons. Governments raced to respond. Trelia offered riches beyond imagination and the chance for glory. But Earth had already trained elite warriors known as the Executioners. Known for their cold precision and deadly skills, they were no ordinary soldiers. They were chosen not just for their prowess in fighting, but also for their ability to handle the psychological strain of war. Commander Zara Ruiz was one such executioner. She stood tall with a strong build and sharp brown eyes. The scars on her arms told tales of many battles fought and won. Zara was a leader who cared deeply for her team but understood the harsh reality of their role. She gathered her team of executioners: Finn, a master hacker; Tessa, an expert in hand-to-hand combat; and Leo, a brilliant sniper. When the news came that they would be heading to Trelia, Zara felt an odd mix of dread and duty. The team had received briefings on their mission. They'd be tasked with helping defend Trelia cities and pushing back the Gorthon forces. They prepared their gear, knowing that their mission might not just be about fighting but also survival. The day of departure arrived quickly. They boarded the spaceship, the Starbreaker, which shimmered like silver against the night sky. As it climbed into the stars, Zara felt a knot in her stomach. She was proud of her team, yet the fear of the unknown crept closer. The stars outside twinkled, a silent reminder that they were heading into the heart of danger. Once they arrived at Trelia, the situation was dire. The sky above the planet was dark, filled with smoke and destruction. The cities lay in ruins, and the Gorthons were relentless in their attacks. They moved like shadows, cruel and quick. As the executioners stepped off the spaceship, they were met by the sight of chaos. Civilians hiding in fear, buildings crumbling, and the distant sound of roaring explosions. "Look alive," Zara said, rallying her team. "We are here to push back. This is our mission." Days turned into weeks as the executioners fought alongside Trellian forces. Each day was grimmer than the last. The Gorthons were strong, but the executioners were stronger. Zara's team shattered through enemy lines with skill and coordination. They moved like a well-oiled machine, quickly dispatching foes and freeing trapped civilians. Yet, with every small victory came heavy losses, both on the side of their own and the innocent Trellians. One day, during a raid on a Gorthon stronghold, the team discovered something dreadful. Tessa spotted a group of civilians being held captive. They were skinnier than they should be, and their eyes were filled with fear. "We can't leave them," she urged. Zara knew the mission but couldn't ignore the humanity in front of them. "Get them out, Finn. We'll cover you," she commanded. While Finn worked his hacking skills to open the cells, Zara and Tessa kept an eye out for the Gorthons. Leo took a vantage point, his sniper rifle ready. Just as Finn's screen blinked green and the locks clicked, they were ambushed. The Gorthons charged in, furious at the intrusion. Zara yelled for the civilians to run, and chaos erupted. Zara's team fought back fiercely, but the Gorthons were overwhelming. They pushed into the room, and one of them lunged for Finn. In that deadly moment, Zara felt a rush of cold blood take over. She shot the Gorthon with perfect aim, but time had slowed. Finn fell to the ground. She rushed to him, but the sight was horrifying. A Gorthon blade had pierced his side. The world around her faded. "Zara," Finn gasped, clutching his wound. "Get out, go." "No. We can save you," she screamed, but deep down, she knew there was no saving anyone here. It was war, and war meant sacrifice. With Tessa pulling her away, Zara was forced to leave Finn behind. Heart-heavy, they escaped with the remaining civilians, but it felt like leaving a part of her soul behind. Once they regrouped, tension crackled in the air. Zara was angry, not just at the Gorthons but at herself for not being able to protect Finn. They trained their sights on self-control, but it was hard to recover. They had only become one unit, yet everything felt shattered. Days passed, and the tide of battle shifted. The humans had claimed victories, yet the Gorthons retaliated fiercely. Zara gathered her team for one last mission, a bold strike against the Gorthon command center. They moved under the cover of darkness, stealthy and quiet. The closer they got, the more they felt the weight of the threat surrounding them. Zara listened to the heartbeat of her team, a mix of fear and determination. They had to finish this. As they engaged in battle, the chaos unfolded. Zara fought fiercely, channeling her loss into strength. The executioners were relentless, moving with precision. Each Gorthon fell heavily, but as they pushed deeper, the enemy seemed limitless. In the thick of combat, they reached the central chamber. Zara was about to finish off the Gorthon leader when she heard a loud explosion. A blast of fiery light enveloped her, throwing her to the ground. Pain shot through her body. Dazed, she saw Tessa and Leo scrambling to help her up. "Zara, we have to go," Leo shouted. "Not yet," she yelled back, pushing herself up. With her last bit of strength, she rushed towards the leader. At last, she faced him, the last foe standing. It was a battle of wills, each trying to outfight the other. But in that moment, she realized what she had become, a soldier, but also an executioner. She was not here to wage a righteous war but to ensure the survival of her people. With a fierce cry, she landed the finishing blow. As the dust settled, Zara looked around. The Gorthons were retreating. They had won, but at a great cost. They lost Finn, and the haunting memory of that moment would stay with Zara forever. After the battle, as they left Trelia behind, Zara felt a mix of sorrow and relief. They had answered a call for soldiers, but the line between soldier and executioner had blurred. With heavy hearts, they looked to the stars, knowing they were no longer just warriors, they were survivors. Commander Zara, a hardened military leader, known for her strategic brilliance and ruthless efficiency. Sergeant Rex, a seasoned soldier, loyal to his comrades and haunted by his past. Ambassador Valerius, a Xylardian diplomat, desperate for Earth's help against a relentless enemy. Kira, a young, idealistic recruit, eager to prove herself in the face of danger. Here is the story. The message crackled through the comms, a desperate plea cutting across the void. Earth, do you hear us? We are the Xylardians. Our world is under siege. We beg you, send soldiers. Commander Zara stood rigid in the war room, her eyes like chips of flint. Around her, officers murmured, their faces etched with curiosity and apprehension. Earth hadn't been involved in a galactic war for centuries, content to watch from the sidelines. But the Xylardians' message was different, tinged with a fear that resonated even across the light years. Assess the situation, Zara barked, her voice sharp and commanding. What are the Xylardians facing? The reports painted a grim picture. The HFY, a relentless and merciless race, were sweeping across the Xylardian territories, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Their technology was brutal, their tactics savage. The Xylardians, a peaceful race of botanists and artists, were ill-equipped to fight back. They need soldiers, Zara concluded, her gaze hardening. And Earth has plenty of those. But Zara knew that sending just any soldiers wouldn't be enough. The HFY were a plague, and plagues required extermination. She needed warriors who wouldn't hesitate, who wouldn't falter. She needed executioners. Sergeant Rex was a ghost of a man, his eyes hollow, his body scarred. He had seen too much death, carried too many burdens. But he was also the most effective killer Zara knew. She found him in the training grounds, a symphony of controlled violence. Rex, Zara said, her voice cutting through the noise. I have a mission for you. Rex stopped, his expression unreadable. What is it, Commander? The Xylardians need our help. We're sending a company. Rex grunted. And you want me to lead them? I want you to make them into something more, Zara said, her eyes locking with his. I want you to make them into what the HFY fear. Rex understood. He had been forged in the fires of countless battles, his humanity burned away, leaving only the cold, hard steel of a warrior. He was an executioner, and now he would train others to be the same. Kira was young, barely out of training, her eyes still bright with idealism. She had signed up to defend Earth, to protect the innocent. She hadn't expected to be shipped off to a distant world, to become a weapon of war. Sergeant Rex is going to whip you into shape, another soldier told her, his voice laced with a hint of pity. He doesn't care about your feelings. He only cares about results. Kira soon learned the truth of those words. Rex was relentless, pushing them to their breaking points. He taught them how to kill efficiently, how to survive in the most hostile environments. He drilled into them the importance of discipline, of obedience, of ruthlessness. The HFY will not show you mercy, he would say, his voice a gravelly rasp. They will not hesitate. You must be prepared to do the same. Kira struggled. She questioned the brutality of their training, the dehumanizing nature of their mission. But she also saw the desperation in Rex's eyes, the weight of his past. She began to understand that sometimes the only way to fight monsters was to become one yourself. Ambassador Valerius greeted them on the Xylardian homeworld, his face etched with gratitude and relief. Thank you, Earth, he said, his voice trembling. You are our only hope. Zara nodded curtly. We are here to help. Show us the front lines. The war was a nightmare. The HFY were relentless, their attacks brutal and overwhelming. The Xylardian defenses were crumbling, their cities falling. But the Earth soldiers, hardened by Rex's training, fought with a ferocity that surprised even Zara. Rex led the charge, a whirlwind of destruction. He moved with a speed and precision that defied belief, his every strike lethal. The HFY fell before him like wheat before a scythe. Kira fought by his side, her initial hesitation replaced by a grim determination. She had seen the horrors of war, the suffering of the Xylardians. She knew that the only way to stop the HFY was to meet them with equal force. The tide began to turn. The Earth soldiers, with their superior training and unwavering resolve, pushed back the HFY, liberating city after city. The Xylardians, emboldened by their success, joined the fight, their spirits renewed. But the KRYL were not easily defeated. They launched a massive counterattack, targeting the Xylardian capital. The battle was fierce, the outcome uncertain. Zara knew that they were on the brink. If the capital fell, the Xylardian resistance would collapse. She needed to do something drastic. "Rex," she said, her voice grim, "I need you to lead a team to disable the KRYL command ship. Without it, their forces will be crippled." Rex nodded. "Consider it done, Commander." He gathered his best soldiers, including Kira. They infiltrated the KRYL lines, moving like shadows through the chaos of battle. They reached the command ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. The fighting was intense, but Rex and his team fought their way inside. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors, taking down KRYL soldiers with ruthless efficiency. They reached the command center, where the KRYL leader was coordinating the attack. Rex didn't hesitate. He charged forward, his weapons blazing. The KRYL leader was a formidable opponent, but Rex was faster, stronger, more determined. He fought with the fury of a man who had nothing to lose. Finally, he stood over the fallen KRYL leader, his weapon trained on his head. "It's over," he said, his voice cold. He pulled the trigger. With the KRYL leader dead, their forces fell into disarray. The Earth soldiers and Xylardians seized the opportunity, launching a final, decisive attack. The KRYL were defeated. The Xylardians celebrated their victory, hailing the Earth soldiers as heroes. But Zara knew that the true cost of their victory was high. They had saved a world, but they had also unleashed executioners upon the galaxy. Kira stood beside Rex, watching the celebrations. She had changed. She was no longer the idealistic recruit who had arrived on this world. She was a warrior, hardened by war, haunted by the things she had done. "Was it worth it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Rex looked at her, his eyes filled with a weariness that mirrored her own. "I don't know," he said. "But we did what we had to do." Zara watched them from a distance, her expression unreadable. She had asked Earth for soldiers, and Earth had sent executioners. She wondered if she had made the right choice. But as she looked at the faces of the grateful Xylardians, she knew that she had done what she had to do. Sometimes, the only way to save a world was to embrace the darkness.